what would your advice be to give to families? How would they start navigating the journey to senior living and looking at the different resources that they have available to them, like Paul had said?
Yeah. I always emphasize, the conversations need to start early. You don't wait until the crisis. You don't wait until mom is so ill or mom has a fall or they're in a skilled nursing and it's like, okay, now what? Now we're in a panic mode. We've got to find something. So it's having those conversations early when things are okay. Mom and dad are doing all right, but you're starting to see maybe some little red flags here and there. But have open conversation, include them in the process. A lot of our emphasis has been on affordability in the discussion, but for those, I was fortunate to work in a setting where people could afford to be there. They had options. There are some options that are more affordable than others. Like everything in life, prices are going up and up, but I was fortunate to work with families for the most part that were able to afford the type of living that we were offering. But oftentimes I would refer them to a board and care type of setting if they really couldn't take advantage of all of the lifestyle options that we were offering in the community I worked with. Because there is so much. It's where I was working, you could enjoy everything from exercise classes, a beautiful indoor saltwater pool, live music every day, open bar, lots of a lifestyle that I wouldn't argue. I'd say, I would want to live there. There was a beautiful place, but again, I was working with people that could afford it, and there were the studios, so you could start at a lower level of cost, and you could go out. There were some people, a single woman that could afford a 2-bedroom. So there was a wide range of affordability within that setting as well. But again, you're starting at, when we started selling, I would say it was around $3,500 a month. And then that's now gone up to at least $6,000. Yeah, so right. Costs have gone up over those years. So it's just.
What about long-term health insurance? Is that something we should be looking at? Is that pay? I don't know how much that
yes.
pays.
It's something that I was saying we're seeing more and more of, but you need to, typically you need to buy into that, start when you're maybe 50, they say is the right time to do it. Healthy and 50. As you get further down the road, then it becomes more and more expensive. And so it's that window of when you should be getting the long-term care.
So let me ask Dr. Trinh a question. I'm going to put him on the hot seat. And I'm sorry I'm making this a hot topic here. But when does this discussion begin and where do you go? And I'll preface that by saying in my own parents' case, they wanted to talk about it a little bit. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to hear their end of life and what was going to happen. We'll deal with that later. And I don't think my mother ever wanted to have that conversation. My dad did a little bit.
No one wants to.
So when it came time, it became clear that this was happening. My mother had Parkinson's. My dad was falling. My aunt had cancer, all these things. It's clear this is suddenly not an impossible thing down the road here. We're going to need some help. We went to the doctor. The doctors did not want to have this discussion at all. Zero. We'd sit in the room and say, what do we do? And they'd say, I don't know, talk to somebody. Who? Well, not me. Who would talk to somebody, but not me.
Absolutely. Doctors are not trained to provide this guidance, and they don't know what the resources are or even where to go. This discussion begins way too late. And I know it because, as you know, I'm in the emergency room on a regular basis, admitting patients. And the majority of folks who arrive to the emergency room who are older, above, they're in their 70s, 80s, most of them don't even have advanced directives.
Yeah, right. Much less.
It tells me that the discussion never happened. Right. And it shouldn't be that way, but that's the reality of the situation today. And you're right, doctors are not prepared or knowledgeable to even start the discussion. But it's a much needed discussion that needs to be integrated into our healthcare process.
So where do you go? Do you go to places like Hoag? We'll bring in your program here. You have this faith-based nursing thing, as Ethnie's pointed out. You guys
we are definitely a resource for that. There are specialists in the field of assisted living and memory care, placement agents. There are big agencies, which I do not recommend. I definitely encourage people to speak with individuals more private.
You're talking about a place for mom or all these things.
Don't even mention that word.
Yeah. I see ads for these things. We went through these types of things.
I discourage highly because it's important for the placement agent to know the client, to know their care needs, their finances, all of their needs. So I think the private agencies, the individuals where they are going to meet with your family, sit down and discuss their care needs, etc. So that to me is important. They're also geriatric care managers, and they are even more skilled. They're nurses skilled in that area. They're going to be more of a private pay situation. Placement agents are paid by the community. So the family does not pay for that service. They will take them around to numerous communities, expose them to their options, and then the family can make that decision. So I do highly recommend families to reach out to placement agents. Some are better than others. So just word of mouth, talk to friends. Who have you used? But using a placement agent is definitely helpful in this process.
So let's go through the third part of the struggle here. If it's a three-legged stool, first is who do I talk to? When do I start this conversation? Second is how the heck do I pay for this? And what can we afford? And how, and when should we start planning for this? And the third option, which really I think is in some ways equally difficult, if not the most difficult, is how do you get mom or dad to go?
Buy in.
Some willingly go. Our public affairs director at Talk Radio just moved her mom into a facility. They're liquidating her house in the valley to pay for it. I gather she has substantial savings anyway. So, and it's a very nice facility here. It's a well-known facility in Orange County. And she welcomed it, wanted it, and has embraced it. I know there are people that do that. In my own aunt's case, I think it's probably more typical. My aunt was a single woman her whole life. She's now in her early 90s. She's got a cancer. She had a blood cancer that made her very weak. She didn't produce enough white blood cells and stuff. So she's always weak. And I didn't know what to do. She didn't want to move with me. I wasn't sure I could take her in to do this, even if she'd wanted to, but she certainly didn't want to. She wanted to stay home alone, but it became clear she was falling. She was fearful. She just could not stay. She stayed too long as it was. So finally, she went in for the 18th time. She fell, went to the hospital. They put her into a nursing facility for 30 days, and they made it real clear. If you don't do something, we're going to call social services, and we're going to literally put her someplace here.
That's all the more reason to start the discussions early. I mean, you have to get an idea of, you want to honor their wishes, of course. You want to honor their dignity, what's important to them, what they value in life. But at the end of the day, it's just digging their heels in and saying, I don't want to leave my home. But it's like, why? Tell me, what do you value here in this home, and what is happening at home that is so important to you?